Mom worked multiple jobs to raise me after my dad passed away, but now my wife is pregnant and has demanded I choose between her and my mom. A little background: my mother and father were both orphans. My father died 2 weeks before I was born. My mother didn't have a support system, so it was just the two of us. I never needed anything since my mother worked her entire life to provide me with the life I have now, and she didn't even have time to start over. She completed every small task imaginable to ensure that we didn't miss anything. She went hungry in order to provide for me. I had extremely nice clothes, but she had none. I observed her make sacrifices over and again, always with a smile. To be honest, I've always assumed she was an angel disguised as a human. She only yelled at me once, when I was 16 and observed her getting sick while working. I wanted to assist her in obtaining work, but she became enraged and told me that it was not my responsibility to care for her and that it was up to her to care for me. She wanted me to achieve exceptionally good scores so I could get into the best universities. It's the only way I'll be able to protect myself after she's gone. Even at university, she did not want me to work. I had to concentrate on my schoolwork, but mother wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult with hands-on experience. I met my wife there while we were helping. My wife is a nice person, but she was never close to her parents or siblings, and she has admired my mother since she met her. We used to joke that she loved my mother more than she liked me. Deep down, I believe she was hoping for a link between mother and daughter that she did not have with her mother. When I finished my studies, I obtained a job, and we moved in together, but she was uncomfortable with my calling my mother every day. Remember, there were 10 to 15-minute calls, and she ultimately stopped bringing them on. 2 years later, I purchased a home for my mother, as we had never owned one. We moved from apartment to apartment, so it was the smallest sacrifice Mom made for me, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problem began, first with my wife, then with my girlfriend. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her that my dream had always been to buy my mother a house since I was a child, and that it was what I had to do, but she protested to my mother. My mother had no idea I had bought her a property as a surprise for her birthday. She was uneasy about getting the house because of my wife, but she told me it wasn't necessary because we could use it for ourselves after we married. I was infuriated. I told my mother that the house was hers, that she could do whatever she wanted with it, but that she needed to prioritize herself first. Our love endured, we married and eventually had our own home. Our lives were going well until 2 months ago, when my mother became ill. I wanted her to move in with us so I could care for her, but my wife refused. I then decided to rent an apartment immediately next to our house with my own money so that I could be close to her and go there to care for her, but my wife was not pleased with that idea either. My wife and I don't have any children yet, we both work. I usually go home at 6 p.m., but because my mother is ailing, I go to see her and return about 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for 1 or 2 hours and spend the rest of my time with my wife. We go on dates. I always join her in her activities, even if she never goes to mine. She told me 2 days ago that she had given it some thought and believes I place too much value on my mother. She informed me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I hope to make with her. The fact is that I never made her feel this way. We both work, but I am the one who cooks and pays someone to do the housekeeping. I make sure to do the dishes she enjoys. She had no idea what I like to eat because I never complained. I run her baths, give her massages and flowers, and I write her poetry, which I hide somewhere in the home for her to discover. We take a trip 1 weekend per month. I earn a lot more money than her. I told her to keep her money for myself, and I will take care of all the expenses, including hers. I constantly make an effort to listen to her and consider her point of view, and I believe I am easygoing because I can adjust my thinking to fit hers, but I understand she wants to completely dominate me, and the only subject on which I do not give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So I'm going to have a conversation with her and set some firm boundaries. If she doesn't want to, we'll divorce. Update 1. Hello everyone, I keep receiving mails requesting for an update. I wanted to do it sooner but didn't have enough time to complete it properly. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments and DMs on my recent article. I tried to respond to everyone but couldn't. Nevertheless, I did read you all. Before addressing my wife, I had time to contemplate, and I decided that no one in my life should ever dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the amount of time I should devote to her. So I decided to respond to the ultimatum, but first I wanted to know if there was another reason why she handed me the ultimatum. She said, "Nope." I asked her if, aside from what she blamed me for, there was anything she wanted to tell me but couldn't. She said that there was nothing and asked me to get to the point. So I told her that I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I believe she was shocked because she was silent. She just stared at me. I tell her everything that was on my mind, including how our beliefs are too different. My mother was ill, and I was going through one of the most difficult times of my life. We administered numerous tests to her. We still have no idea what she is suffering from. We do not know her family's medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me nervous to think that I could suddenly find myself alone in the world. Yes, I am alone in the world because all I needed in these trying times was her support, but if my own wife believes that I should pay less attention to my mother, who is unwell and needs me more than ever, it is time for us to part ways. She still didn't say anything, so I told her I was going to a hotel for the night and we'd talk about how we were going to separate later. I gathered some of my belongings and fled. When I went to see my mother the next day, she realized something was wrong, but I wasn't going to tell her I was leaving my wife because she couldn't handle our relationship, especially because she was so sick. I didn't want to make things worse for her. I never discuss my marriage troubles with my mother, so she is unaware of our problems. To be honest, she adores my wife too much, and my wife behaves as if she were her own mother, so I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mother ends up telling me that my wife did not come by that day. Yes, my wife, who wanted me to limit my contact with my mother, saw her every day, and I never asked her to do anything for her. She calls my mother Mom. When she was sick, she used to go to my mother, and she would take care of her. It used to bother me because I felt like I couldn't take care of her, but she explained that this wasn't the same. A mother's motives are different. I told myself it was her attempt to form a mother-daughter tie that she had never had, and I understood her. She has previously stated that her mother told her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, that she nearly aborted her and regrets not doing so. Only a monster could say such to her child, so I never said anything when she demanded my mother's attention. After all, I received enough affection to share with whoever desired my mother. After I went home to school, she became a foster mother for children, something she had always done until 2 years ago. I have always adored each of the children with whom I remain in contact and regard to be my siblings. We all went on vacation for a week every year, the kids, my mother, and my wife. I typically take 2 months of vacation, 6 of which I devote to my wife, but the 2 weeks I devote to my mother and children are too much for my wife. Anyway, I am rambling. So, when my mother told me she hadn't gone to see her that day, I hurried back home, frightened. I discovered her in the toilet, dressed and with red eyes, as if she had been crying all along. Seeing her in that state was awful. I helped her, but this proud woman crumbled in front of me, crying profusely. I'm not sure if it was an hour or two, but she kept crying, then calmed down and cried again. I just remained silent. She eventually told me that, deep down, she never wanted me to be less involved in my mother's life. She was always jealous of our closeness. She was constantly envious of the attention my mother paid to the other children. She understands that it was not sensible, but she couldn't help but strive to be number one in my mother's heart. It was a competition for her, so when I wanted to care for my mother, she didn't want me to be the one to do it. I was furious, but I didn't say anything. I wondered if she was a psychopath or anything. We're talking about a genuinely ill person, and she's obsessed with her darn competition, even if it meant destroying my connection with my mother and putting us in a position where I wanted to divorce her. She told me she was very jealous of me and would have preferred to be in my position. If she had to pick, she would have chosen to be my mother's child over my wife, even though I was the love of her life and the only man she'd ever known. She also informed me that even if the world breaks apart around me, I will stay stoic, that I live as if I don't need anyone, and that I offer everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me, and she was never able to do so. Only my mother could. I didn't know what else to say. I was so caught up with the concept of competitiveness that I didn't immediately understand the extent of her comments, but I listened to her to the conclusion. I put her in bed till she fell asleep, and then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning, she was acting like nothing had occurred. She was being herself. She stated, "I don't have to pity." I assured her it was out of love. She remained my wife. She departed for work, and I did the same, but I opted to stay at the hotel for the time being. During that moment, I questioned how I could have made the saying behave so that she would think about it. Deep down, I believe she is correct. It is a protection mechanism I have had since infancy. I've never stayed in one place long enough to establish friends. It was painful every time we had to move from my 5th to my 15th year. I had moved more than 50 times from apartment to apartment, hotel room to hotel room, and I believe I have always lived my relationships in a squat. I never unpacked or settled in because I knew I could be forced out at any time, but I thought I acted differently with my wife, but apparently not. So I reasoned that perhaps we didn't need to go that far. What we needed was therapy rather than divorce. Then, a little more than a week after our conversation, I received a call from the hospital. My wife had been admitted. She reportedly was not feeling well. I went to see her, but she didn't want to see me. I've never seen so much hatred in just two eyes. I informed her best friend so she could have system support because she did not want me there. I informed my mother, and she inquired what I had done to my wife to put her in the hospital, and she advised me not to stress a pregnant lady. I asked, "What?" She told me what my wife told her and begged her to keep it a secret so she could tell me when she was ready. I'm not sure what was going through my head. Anger because it was my mother who told me, happiness at being a father for the first time, and complete astonishment at the odd circumstance. I went to tell my wife, but she looked at me angrily and told me she had lost the baby, which was my fault. In an instant, I learned that my wife was pregnant but kept it a secret from me, that I was going to be a father, that we had lost the baby, and that she was accusing me of causing something I had no idea about. She asked me to go, and I did. I always desired children from a young age. My wife preferred to focus on her work. I understood and agreed. I tried to persuade her for years but was unsuccessful. Now that she is pregnant, she doesn't tell me anything. She tells my mother about it, and she claims I caused her miscarriage. She has now stated that she did not tell me anything because she wanted to ensure that I could handle all of the obligations I assigned to myself while also raising a child. I don't understand her, and I've admitted to harboring a strong dislike for her ever since. I can't look at her without feeling angry, and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home, but we do not communicate. I'm not going to stay with her. That's impossible. I began seeing a psychologist, who advised me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't base irreversible decisions on emotions that could be fleeting, and that I should take my time to see if there was anything to salvage. This is where I am. I'm not sure if I will do another update. I took days off to care for my wife and mother, but I'm miserable and want to go away from it all right now. In any event, thank you for sharing your thoughts on your first post, whether they were supportive or critical. Update 2. Hello everyone, it has been a while. I didn't want to post again after my last one, but even though it's been months, I continue to receive support and people wonder where I am in my life. So, I believe I owe you at least one final update because your comments and direct messages were quite helpful to me at a time when I needed them the most. I'm not sure whether it'll be long, but let's go. My wife was obviously pregnant after her miscarriage. I had to care for her because she couldn't do it alone. After what happened, all I could think of was rage and contempt, but as I previously stated, if something is fragile enough to break, you have no choice but to treat it tenderly. I didn't want her to break. I didn't want to abandon her in the most difficult time of her life, so I fulfilled my job as a husband despite everything. Her mental state deteriorated. She believed she was still pregnant and talked to herself. She became crazy one night, mistaking me for her father and believing that I was going to hurt her. I had to call the emergency room and, after an assessment, a psychiatrist urged me to have her admitted. That is what I did. She spent 6 weeks there. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Physicians assume she possibly has delusional condition and was severely mistreated as a child, but that's all they could tell me. She did not want to see anyone, particularly her relatives. She proposed that we connect by letters, so every time I went there, I took her letter and dropped mine the next day. It's crazy. I get the sensation that in 2 months, I got to know her better than I had in the previous 10 years, which reminded me of how nice a person she was despite her imperfections. She used to travel to help build schools, wells, and anything else that could benefit those living in poverty. She did more than just offer money. She also lent a hand. She's the type to help a foreigner who doesn't speak the language catch his train, even if it means missing her own. Honestly, she was like a gold mine, full of resources and kindness. Although we had money, we used to like traveling on public transportation to recall when we were poor and to enjoy life simply because having each other was enough. We would go without money and dare one another to see how far we could reach. It was the best moment of our life. We were so close and in love that we thought nothing could separate us. What's changed since then? We attempted to sort it out in our letters to each other, and we talked about a variety of topics. I will not go into depth. She accepts responsibility for her faults, just like I do. She fully accepts responsibility for the repercussions of her conduct. She apologized for how she treated me and acknowledged that the only conceivable outcome is a divorce. She needs to heal and improve herself. She stated she had a long way to go, which wasn't fair to me. She stated that, given her situation, I would not discuss a divorce with her. She would have to handle it herself. Some fights she must fight alone. Otherwise, she will never be her finest self. She has no idea how long it will take, but if she arrives and I haven't moved on, She'll be pleased to start over with me. I've always believed in repairing broken objects rather than discarding them, but this doesn't apply to humans. You can't fix someone unless they want to be fixed, and I wouldn't have had the strength to fix someone because I'm concentrating all of my remaining energy on attempting to fix myself. If my wife had not made the decision she did, I would have offered divorce. Paradoxically, it was because she took the decision that I saw hope for us. I then proposed a separation rather than a divorce, and if we still want to divorce after a year, we will. If we believe we can be in a healthy partnership, we will reconnect, communicate, and attempt to do things differently. She agreed, stating that was her hope. When she got out of the hospital, she didn't want us to meet because she didn't think she'd be able to stick to her resolutions. For my part, I hadn't yet let go of all the unpleasant emotions that had arisen as a result of the circumstances before her illness, so it was ultimately best for both of us. We decided to continue sending letters to one another, which is fine with me for the time being. She could see my mother. She wrote what my mother told her: despite her terrible mistakes, she will always be a mother figure to her. She did not have to strive for her love since she already had it, and that is something that will never change. She asked whether I was comfortable with her getting in touch with my mom. I told her it was up to them. She didn't need my permission. Nevertheless, she wouldn't be seeing my mother very frequently because I had decided to take my mother to one of the top hospitals in the world, which is located in Europe. About me, I've been in Germany for over a month now. We're from France, and I'm learning to delegate tasks after making a resolution in treatment. I needed therapy, and you were the ones who convinced me. I will always be thankful to you. The therapy sessions were so intense and exhausting that I didn't have the energy to do much after leaving my therapist's room, but it improved over time. I'm now working remotely. I return to France once a week to settle things at work and continue with my treatment sessions because I do not want to change therapists. I managed to devote time solely to myself, which is truly beneficial. One of my foster brothers wanted to travel with us to Germany because he too works remotely. He is a big assistance. In short, I'm getting better. About my mother. This is perhaps the most difficult thing to tackle, and I acknowledge that I don't want to talk about it, but I also believe that talking about it here will prepare me to talk about it later in life. A few years ago, we moved from apartment to apartment and hotel to hotel. This is one of the hardest periods of our lives. Because we were a single mother with a child, the state always provided us with a place to sleep. It wasn't stable because we had to change locations every time, but it was preferable to sleeping outdoors. My mother was and still is a stunningly attractive woman. She happened to receive sexual bids for an apartment right in front of my eyes. I'm not sure what she went through with my father, but she refused to be with anybody else because she believes that death does not end a meaningful relationship. There was an association that used to look after us by always providing us a place to stay the night. One of the guys in charge of finding us someplace to stay asked us to stay in his apartment while they looked for a better place for us because we were staying in an unsanitary motel. My mother didn't want to go, but I persuaded her to go since the prospect of sleeping warm in a good bed was all I could think about. But after we had supper at his house, he began making moves on my mother, who quickly stopped him. He told us it was either that or leave his house, so we left. We returned to the hotel, but our room had already been occupied. There was nothing we could do that day, so we decided to sleep outside. Trigger warning, gang RP, we were startled while sleeping by a gang of men who were attempting to RP my mother. They attacked me so hard that I was frightened to try to help my mother. Several other men who had apparently returned from a party heard the screams and rushed to our relief. The attackers fled. I always maintained that my mother was almost our pet, and I eventually believed it, but my mother was our pet right in front of my eyes. I finally admitted it. My mother had become our pet before my eyes, and I was powerless to stop it. If we had thrown ourselves into each other's arms and cried together that day, things may have been different, but she stood up, took my arm, and informed me that this spot was not safe and that we needed to look for a safer place. We never spoke about that day again. We continued with our lives as if nothing had happened. Things improved over time. She worked hard to ensure my success. She put all of her life's earnings in my project, and I now owe her the firm I founded. How did she endure the hell she'd been through? Since I accepted the fact that she was our pet, all I wanted to do was tell her about it, but it's not about me. She's the one who went through the hardest. I'd like to talk to her about it, but I'm not sure what good can come of it after so many years. That's all. As of today, her condition is improving, and the future appears better than it did a few months before. So, I believe that is all. This will be my final post. To everyone who has supported me during those difficult times, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish you the best in your lives. May what you have left to live be better than what you have already lived. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.